Welcome to my channel, The Human Frontier. I never intended to sit on the throne. In fact, I wasn't even supposed to be inside the royal chamber at all. My name is Armin Hale, a junior navigation officer assigned to the Terran diplomatic fleet, important enough to wear a formal uniform, but not important enough to stand anywhere near royalty. My job during the Alliance Summit on the world of Elera was simple: escort delegates through the palace corridors and make sure no one got lost inside the maze-like structure of glowing marble halls. Ironically, I was the one who got lost. The Illyrian Palace was enormous, far larger than the architectural scans had suggested. Corridors curved in smooth spirals, and walls shifted slowly as if alive, rearranging pathways according to ceremonial schedules only the palace systems understood. I followed what I thought was the correct passage toward the delegation wing, but after several turns, the guiding lights on the floor changed color, redirecting traffic for an upcoming ceremony. Within minutes, I realized I had no idea where I was. The corridor opened into a vast chamber lit by soft silver light. It looked empty, no guards, no attendants, no visitors. At the center of the chamber stood a raised platform, and upon it rested an elegant crystalline seat shaped almost like a flowing sculpture. I assumed it was decorative. My feet ached after hours of standing escort duty, and since no one seemed to be around, I stepped onto the platform and sat down for just a moment to rest. That was when the doors behind me opened. Voices filled the hall, dozens of them. I turned, confused, and saw a procession entering the chamber. Armored guards, robed nobles, ceremonial attendants, and at the center of them all, a tall woman wearing a crown of translucent light. The Queen. For a moment, no one spoke. The entire hall froze. Then I realized the terrible truth. I wasn't sitting on a decorative chair. I was sitting on the Queen's throne. I jumped to my feet so quickly I nearly tripped over the steps. I'm sorry, I stammered, stepping backward. I didn't know. The guards began moving forward, their armor emitting faint warning glows. A few nobles whispered sharply among themselves, clearly expecting an immediate arrest, or worse. But the Queen raised her hand, and every movement stopped instantly. She studied me in silence. Ellerans were strikingly beautiful by human standards, tall, luminous skin faintly shimmering, eyes glowing softly like distant stars. Yet what held my attention wasn't her appearance. It was her expression. She didn't look angry. She looked curious. "You did not know whose seat it was?" she asked. "No, Your Majesty." I was lost. I thought the room was empty. A ripple of murmurs spread through the nobles. Sitting on the throne of Elera was considered an act of treason among their own people. I expected punishment at any moment. Instead, the Queen did something no one anticipated. She stepped forward and extended her hand. "Come," she said gently. I hesitated, unsure whether this was part of some ceremonial reprimand, but refusing a direct royal gesture would be even worse. Slowly, I took her hand. Her touch was warm, surprisingly human. She guided me back toward the throne platform. The guards looked tense, but none interfered. "You sat without fear," she said quietly. "Most who enter this chamber feel the weight of the throne before they ever see it." "I didn't feel anything," I admitted. "That is precisely what is interesting." She turned toward the watching nobles. "Leave us," she ordered. The command stunned them. A few exchanged uncertain glances, but royal authority was absolute. Within moments, the massive chamber emptied, leaving only the Queen and me beneath the silver-lit ceiling. I was certain I was about to receive a private lecture on diplomatic protocol. Instead, she asked a question. "When you sat on the throne," she said, "did you feel any pressure in your thoughts? Any sense of unease or influence?" No, I replied. Just embarrassment when everyone walked in. She smiled faintly. That is unusual. The Illyrian throne, she explained, was not merely symbolic. It was an ancient artifact designed to synchronize with the neural patterns of Illyrian royalty. When anyone else attempted to sit upon it, the throne generated a subtle cognitive resistance, an overwhelming discomfort that forced the individual to stand almost immediately. Even trained officials could remain seated for only seconds. Yet I had sat there calmly, unaware of anything unusual. The throne did not reject you, she said thoughtfully. That has not happened in recorded history. I didn't know how to respond to that. I promise I wasn't trying to claim anything, I said quickly. I know, she replied. That is why this is intriguing. Over the next few days, I expected the incident to fade into quiet palace gossip. Instead, I found myself summoned repeatedly for harmless-sounding evaluations. Scientists scanned my neural patterns. Cultural advisors asked endless questions about human emotional responses. Even the diplomatic council requested a short interview. Apparently, the throne's reaction, or lack of reaction, was more significant than anyone initially admitted. Finally, the Queen herself called for a private meeting. You believe this is coincidence, she said as we walked through a garden terrace overlooking the glowing city. But the throne is ancient technology. It responds to resonance compatibility. If it did not reject you, it means something within your neurological structure aligns closely with Illyrian royal patterns. I laughed nervously. I'm just a navigation officer. I don't think I'm secretly alien royalty. She gave a small smile. No. But perhaps our species are more compatible than we believed. News of the incident quietly spread among Illyrian society. Some nobles viewed it with suspicion, others with fascination. A few traditionalists argued that allowing a foreigner to sit, even accidentally, on the throne was a bad omen. Yet the Queen seemed unconcerned by such fears. Instead, she invited human delegates to additional cultural exchanges, expanding joint research programs and opening sections of the capital previously closed to outsiders. Relations between our peoples improved faster in 3 months than in the previous 10 years. One evening, during a diplomatic banquet, she approached my table. You still look uncomfortable whenever I enter the room, she said. With respect, Your Majesty, I accidentally committed what would be treason in most civilizations. And yet nothing terrible happened, she replied. Sometimes traditions survive long after their purpose fades. The real turning point came during the Festival of Alignment, a ceremonial event where the Queen traditionally reaffirmed her connection to the throne before the entire population. Millions watched across the planetary networks as she entered the Grand Chamber. To my surprise, I received a last-minute invitation to attend, standing near the diplomatic observers. As the ceremony began, the Queen paused halfway to the throne and turned toward the audience. Today, she announced, we acknowledge not only tradition, but the future. She looked directly at me. Officer Armin Hale, please step forward. My heart nearly stopped. Whispers filled the chamber as I walked toward the platform. I had no idea what she intended, and judging by the expressions of several nobles, neither did they. She extended her hand again, the same gesture from the first day. Sit with me, she said. I hesitated. Your Majesty, I don't think. It is a request, not a command. Slowly, I stepped beside her as she sat upon the throne. Then, guided gently by her hand, I sat beside her on the wide, crystalline seat. Nothing happened. No alarms, no protests from the ancient artifact. The throne's light simply brightened slightly, glowing in 2 intertwined streams instead of 1. Gasps echoed through the chamber. Later, analysts would debate the meaning endlessly: symbolism, technological compatibility, diplomatic theater. But in that moment, the message was clear. Humanity was no longer seen as distant outsiders. We were becoming partners. After the ceremony, when the crowds had dispersed, I asked her the question that had been on my mind since the beginning. Why didn't you get angry when you first saw me sitting there? She considered the question carefully. Because, she said, anger is easy. Curiosity builds empires. She looked back at the throne. For generations, my people believed only one kind of mind could share this seat. Yet you sat without fear, without ambition, without even knowing what it meant. That told me something important. What? That the future will not belong to those who guard their thrones most fiercely, but to those willing to share them. Months later, the alliance between Earth and Elora officially formed, opening trade routes and research exchanges across multiple star systems. Historians would later describe complex political negotiations and strategic advantages, but those who had been there remembered the simpler beginning. A lost human officer, an empty chamber, and a moment of accidental courage that changed how two civilizations saw each other. On the anniversary of the first summit, I was invited once more to the palace. As we stood overlooking the glowing skyline, the queen took my hand briefly, not as a ruler claiming authority, but as a friend acknowledging a shared story. All of this, she said softly, gesturing toward the city lights, began because you sat down when you were tired. I smiled. Next time I'll be more careful where I sit. She laughed quietly. No, she said. Sometimes the wrong seat is exactly where history needs you to be. Thank you for listening. Subscribe for more cinematic science fiction stories.